back to another episode of Singapore's Real Estate Explained, brought to you by the GNA Investments team. I'm Grace.
And this is Chris here.
And today we'll not be doing a nuanced review, but we'll be talking about the most recent cooling measures by HDB.
Yes, this is a very hot topic right now. People are worried, will it crash the market? And it came out just a few days ago. In fact, at 12 a.m.
As usual, because last time when they released it in the afternoon, right, people still got time to go and take action. So now the government say 12 a.m. So nobody can take any decisions or make any steps until like the policy is in place.
Yeah, so it's only 1 second reaction time. The moment you know, okay, it's implemented. Yeah, so why is it important to know is because it may affect the market, and that's something that a lot of clients have been asking us to say, how would it affect the HDB market, even private market? And that's something we're going to talk about today. So before we move on to this topic, I'd like to thank our clients. Our 500 investment client who has served, and we have been getting decent returns of 19.56% per annum. And it's something that without your support, this channel won't be surviving till today. And this is something we would like to really thank you to continuously give us feedback on how we can improve for our videos.
Yeah.
And also, in our in real estate, we have hit 124 good reviews, and it's something that we have been always very encouraged by, and we hope to bring more value as years come by.
And if you're interested to know how we sell our houses, you can also check out our Locked It series, where our sales side team also give insights on the whole process on how they actually market the homes to get the best price for you.
And without much further ado, let's go into today's topic. Okay, so today we'll be covering 5 main things. One is about HDB policy, what happened that caused the uproar. The second is the rationale behind this policy. Third is to look at the past HDB cooling measure. This will be very interesting. We're going to see how does it really affect the HDB market. Okay, and using that, we will prorate to today and see how would this cooling measure affect our resale prices. And last but not least is a look at the long-term plans for HDB. How would it fare in the long-term run? All right, so let's jump into the topic. Okay, Grace, can we ask through the HDB policies?
Yep, so the most recent changes of what HDB actually did, right, were 2 main changes. First was the tighter HDB loan limits, which means the loan-to-value actually decreased from 80% to 75%. What this basically means is that in the past, you can take a loan up to 80% of the value of the HDB, which means your down payment is 20%. But now they actually decreased this to 75%, which is similar on par with the condo market or private market.
Yeah, so this is if you take HDB loan, which is similar to right now when you take a private bank loan from banks. So there's something that they decide to match it equal. So there's no incentive to take HDB loan anymore. Right.
But this also means that the down payment, instead of 20% in the past, if you take a HDB loan, has already increased up to 25%. So buyers now, when they buy a property, instead of setting aside 20%, they have to have extra cash aside or extra CPF aside.
Set aside, yes. But there's a silver lining. Like government like to give something
one bad, one
news,
good, at least to balance things out. So people don't complain so much.
Yeah, so they increased the Enhanced CPF Housing Grant.
Yeah.
Okay, from last time, they raised it up from 80K to 120K for families and 40K to 60K for single. So this is a good news. Okay, so let's run through. I mean, the second, if you look at the difference, okay, for first-timer families, basically, usually couple or with a kid, first time into a HDB market, they are given grants. Okay, last time it used to be about 190K. Okay, but right now, based on income, of course, they will go up to 230K. So take note, for this EHG grants, it's actually based on income. The lower the income, okay, the more grants you get.
Yep.
Yes. And then for single, it's actually half of it. Okay, this is usually for single who are above 35, buying the HDB perhaps. And they are also granted with grants the first time. And instead of the last time 95,000, it went up to 115,000. Yeah. And also for new flats, from 40,000, it went up to 60,000. So a slight bump to actually counter the cooling measure that actually came in.
Yep.
Right. So if you take a look at the difference, okay, in before August 2024, you can see those who actually benefit from this particular grant is typically those who are
on the lower income range. Yeah, so that's where you see the most significant difference. Then once the income slowly goes up, you will notice that the difference doesn't really change. For example, if you look at the last spectrum or the highest spectrum of 8,500 to now 9,000, you realize that actually the EHG or grant amount stays the same at 5,000.
Yes.
But of course, the 1,500 and below, then you'll see the significant difference of 40K.
So it's going to equalize the entire market. For people who are low income, they hope to support more of this family to get at least own a home. To increase home ownership. All right. And next, if you look at the singles, it's actually quite similar. For those that are for high income range, 4,000 and 4,005 is 2,000. It will be the same EHG grants. But as you transit more towards those that are less than 2,000 income, that's when you see an exponential increase in terms of housing.
So just like divide half if you want to know what the single is and the family is.
Yeah, but nowadays, I guess most of singles are actually fetching more than 4,005. So they may not even be qualified for this grant. Yeah. So it's ready to support those who are of lower income range. Okay, so with this, right, let's run through why did government come up with this housing policy. Okay, the first thing first is, of course, if you look at it, it's HDB market. It went up by 42%.
And HDB is supposed to be affordable housing. So when it becomes not affordable, that's when the government have to step in and say, okay, people are complaining, $1 million HDBs are everywhere now. And so that's when they say, okay, let's put for some policies to actually curb the prices.
In fact, you've not just done this year, you've done in 2021, 2022, 2023 subsequently. And this is one additional cooling measure that came in for HDB loans only. And this in fact links to our second rationale, which is to align with political interests, because government hope to keep HDB affordable, as mentioned just now. And by aligning HDB loan limits to the financial institution standards, they sort of level the playing field. And the only difference right now is the HDB loan, of course, of slightly low interest rates. And the amount of loan you can borrow for HDB loan based on income can be slightly higher. But in terms of LTV, loan to value, based on the loan versus the property price, it has now been equalized. Okay, and of course, to support first-timer lower income buyers, by increasing the grants, it creates a more healthy environment for those who don't have enough capital to buy into their first home to enjoy this benefit. And fun fact, it's quite strategic timing. It's aligned towards our National Day rally announcement, where usually government, especially with the new PM coming in, they hope to announce good news for housing, and I guess it does create more, happiness in terms of the public.
Happiness for buyers, or maybe not so much happiness for sellers on the ground.
Yes, which is most of the clients that we are serving right now for upgraders. So with this, okay, will the HDB market crash? Okay, so with this, let's take a look into this matrix that we look at, which is called the Property Bubble Index. So what this raise is to see whether there's a property bubble in Singapore. Okay, if there is, then HDB market, if there's cooling measure came in, maybe it will crash.
Because a crash in the market is always due to a burst in the property bubble. So you have to also understand what causes property bubble in the first place to actually see whether these measures will then relate to a crash in the market.
Yes, and property bubble is usually linked to our income versus house pricing. If the house price went up way past our income, what we can afford, then that is a bubble. So how to look at this chart is very simple. I think we went through this multiple times in our investment webinar or certain our past videos, but just will run through again. It's the higher the number, especially reaching above 1 to 1.7, there is a property bubble and there's higher chance to crash. But right now, Singapore is way below 0.5, a very healthy, fair value price. So there is no property bubble at all. And fun fact, if you look at this other slide, you can see that the bubble has been shrinking over the years. Even though our property price has been increasing, interestingly, our income has rose significantly also concurrently to be able to match out to our property price. So this allows us to not have a bubble. So you worry if HDB price will crash, not likely.
So this is this is by data, right, that shows that actually GDP has been increasing on par with the property price. But on the ground, our parents are always saying, I don't know how you guys are going to buy a property next time because the property prices keeps going up. But if you were to trace back to the GDP, actually the increment in GDP is on par with the property price.
In fun fact, some of the younger generation are also worried. Recently, I heard a story from my pastor. He said that there were young people who say, okay, I feel like I want to save up and not tithe because I worry I cannot afford a house in the future. So is it younger generation are thinking of saving up and towards the idea of like saving up for your housing. So this is something that in fact we are way prepared ahead of time. Unlike those who are just spending, getting credit card when they get their first pay. So this is the culture that we have in Singapore. Okay, and along with the fact of higher interest rate environment for the past 3 years, our bubble has been deflating because we don't see as much speculation. People cannot borrow as much, and people are fearful that when they borrow, they cannot pay back. So they are being very prudent in the spending. So this creates a very strong environment for property price to grow steadily rather than being overinflated into a bubble.
So the next thing I want to look at is also HDB policy effects on what were the HDB changes or policies in the past, how they've affected the market, and how it will affect the market moving forward also.
Yeah. So let's take a look at the past policies. You can see there's a whole range, like almost like at least 15 to 18 cooling measures came in the past 15 years. So for now, we are zooming to the more important ones. You can see if you zoom all the way in, okay, you have seen different kinds of cooling measures that came in from sales and duty, which means if you were to sell in certain number of years, there'll be a tax given to you.
So to prevent people from flipping, because without this, people can actually sell the property 3 months, 6 months, 9 months down the road.
Yeah, they'll flip option. They'll say, like buying stocks. I buy a HDB, I sell you 10K higher, and they keep flipping.
And government don't really want this to happen because it makes the whole market very volatile.
Yes, indeed. But fun fact, if you look at this sales and duty, they came out in the first few years, it did not stop the growth. The price still continue climbing because people still can afford. Okay, and if you look at the second one over here, which is the ABST, that's another measure to prevent people from buying multiple properties. If you were to buy additional one back then, the first ABST came in interestingly. The first home, okay, is 0. The second one for SC, Singapore citizen, is still 0%. That was in close to a 2012 period, 2011 period. Okay. And for third home, Singaporean can just need to pay 3%.
Yeah, which is not very significant.
They're not very significant. And then they increased all the way, we're nearing to 2013 to hit 7% for second home, third home 10%. So that became more significant and Singaporeans stopped buying. Okay, but the one that hit the most, which I explain later on, is called TDSR. Okay, it's a very interesting concept which limits the loan you can borrow. Okay, but for specifics, I'll run through that later on. But this was the one that caused the market to go downhill, okay, for HDB market. They didn't see how much effect. Then subsequently, the next one that came in, okay, is actually right over in the 2019-2020 period, where if you were to see later on 2021 period, 2020-2021, where it is TDSR, we tightened loan slightly more, and also similar like plans like what happened this time, where the LTV from 90% for HDB in 2021 was changed to 85%. And later on in 2022 and 2023, where LTV dropped from 85% to 80%. So very similar to what happened, but fun fact, you see, it didn't really stop the growth. It continued climbing.
So you'll see it's always a trial and error by the government because sometimes for them, they think it may curb the market, but sometimes the market reacts otherwise. So that's why you will see multiple steps along the way, because if it doesn't stop, then what is the next policy that comes in place? Yes,
correct. And with that, you can see it did not really curb the growth like by a lot, but it's still a little bit, but the price will continue climbing. So that's why the government, I guess, implement this once again. They don't expect a huge crash. It's just more like, to warn people, say, hey, don't buy and overinflate the property value too much. And it's just a slight warning rather than wanting to crash the market.
So with that, we can also see how prices have been affected once TDSR actually was implemented. So you will see before TDSR was implemented, despite measures by the government, prices didn't really move. And when TDSR, so this was the changing factor that the government realized, finding something that kind of worked, right? And that's when you will see, okay, from 2013 onwards, prices of HDB kind of depreciate a little bit, and then after that stagnate for a while, all the way until COVID period. So now you're also seeing that during COVID period, 2021, 2022, when they actually have measures implemented such as lower LTV and TDSR, volume did fall, but it didn't really help on HDB prices because HDB prices still went up. And that's why you're seeing another implementation of cooling measures by the government, hoping that this will kind of cool the HDB prices a little because it's went up too crazily over the last couple of years.
Yes, indeed. So there's actually two kinds of cooling measure. I'll call it the major cooling measure, TDSR, which I share why it did affect the market so much back then. And you had a minor one, which just cool down the market a bit, but just, I guess, a little bit of scare tactic to say, okay, don't push the market too far. Okay, so let's understand what happened back then. Okay, so fun fact, if you look at the interesting part about HDB and condo prices, in the 2013 period when TDSR was implemented, the HDB price dropped by 9.83%, about 10%, and then went flat from 2015 to 2019, 2020 for almost like it depreciated more, it didn't go up at all.
For 4 years.
4 years. But meanwhile, interestingly, the condo market actually went up. Okay, from 2015 to 2020, okay, by 24%. So there's this interesting matrix that came in, which will explain why later on. Why is there such a difference in terms of how the asset class respond? Yeah, so long story short, if you look at TDSR later on, you understand when a major cooling measure came out, what will happen is that it does cause a more drastic change in terms of our prices for HDB, not as much as condo, but the recovery for HDB is usually slower as compared to condominium.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see how MSR actually affect our HDB market back then. So rewind back to the past. Before June 2013, okay, if someone who is 5K income, 30 years old, with a 3% interest rate market, fun fact, he can actually borrow close to $1 million.
It's a lot of money for someone who's earning 5K back in the
Yes.
past.
So for loan-wise, it's actually not a problem for a lot of people. Down payment, yes, I mean 10%, most we can pay in CPF. So not a very huge issue. Okay. And if you look back at the income, the median income of people back in 2013, it was 3,007. So it's 50%, okay, 3,700. So easily, if you use the old scheme, they can borrow 600-700K easily. And that's something that is not an issue for loan.
Yeah.
And after 2013, when MSR came out, the same profile individual can only borrow 326,000.
So I think
Yes.
to understand MSR and TDSR, for those of you who are unsure what or how different they are, TDSR is basically a total debt servicing ratio, means you can use, let's say it's 55%, you can use 55% of your income to pay off any debt. This includes your housing debt, your car loan, etc. So it means if let's say you got no other debts or no other car loans, then you can use 55% of your income to pay off your mortgage. For MSR, why it's only applicable to HDB, it's not applicable to condo. So MSR is based on 30%, means they don't really take into account your other debts. They only say that 30% of your income can go towards your mortgage. So usually for HDB, they'll do both TDSR and MSR, and then they'll take the lower of the both to calculate how much loan they can actually grant you.
Yes, and in fact, this is quite hefty because 30% income means you earn 5,000.
Yeah.
You give 1,500 per month for a mortgage.
Yeah, correct.
Which that's how they borrow into the borrowing power side of things. Because with this income, right, you can't borrow as much. Last time it's 100%. You can use your full amount. And banks can do a lot of things to allow you to do that. But the MAS came with this whole guideline, which makes it very tough to borrow. So imagine from 1 million to 300, a lot of people can no longer afford HDB. They need to down pay more, which people have problems struggling with down payment actually rather than a loan, and this prevents them to be able to even get any HDB. So that's why the market, if you take a look, that's now it dropped by 10% and then flat for almost a few years until our income level could rise up to even afford
To
a
match
HDB.
it,
Yeah. So there's something that happened. But on the other hand, interestingly, why the condo market took a quicker time to actually rebound is because if you take a look at the borrowing power back then, yes, it was 2.174 million. Okay, what happened is this amount they can borrow, and usually condo owners are usually high income earners, 10K income, 8K, or some maybe lower, but it's about 2.174. But you look at the difference when they drop. The TDSR came in, instead of dropping by 3 times or 4 times, close to three times plus, they only dropped by about 80%.
Yep.
And 1.3 million borrowing power, take note, for these people who can actually buy a condo in the first place, is something that they can still afford a condo.
Yeah.
It's not like something that is way below what the condo price is. Condo prices are still within that range back then.
So the impact is smaller for condo wise, and it's easier for them to recover in the market also. I think the reason why they did that was for government wise, because condo is always seen as a need, as a want, and HDB is a need.
Yep.
So they really need to make sure that HDB prices don't go crazy. But for condo, they can still, they definitely don't want it to go crazy, super crazy, but they give it a little bit more leeway for it to run.
Yes, correct. That's why for TDSR, which applies for condo, instead of 30% income, you can use 60% income to pay. And that's something that is not too bad, that people can still accept and be able to buy property later on, even when it hit 2015 time when the market actually reversed. Yeah, so this is something that you take note. And that's why if we do have something similar, imagine next time MSR 15%. I mean, then I will say, okay, that will be the end of HDB. But I think for now, government is not so heartless. They're still think that, okay,
30%.
30%, so keep it as that and only give like small cooling measure here and there. Yeah. So with what we have seen for MSR, okay, which is not happening in this season, let's take a look at how this cooling measure affect today's market.
Yep.
Okay. So if you look at effect of HDB, I would say it's quite interesting because instead of coming with just a cooling measure, they dropped the LTV. They also came with grants. So it's all balanced out. That's why in terms of effect wise, yes, for HDB resale purchase, for second timer,
Yeah.
it may affect the demand a little bit.
I think this will affect the more expensive HDBs or the higher income earners because let's say 5%, right? If you were to look at it, 5% of, let's say, $1 million HDB, that's 50K. So it means someone has to come up with an extra 50K to down pay. But people who are likely looking at $1 million HDB, right, their income would likely not be able to get any grant.
Yep.
So in that sense, for them, it's a
Side loose.
Yeah,
something like that.
correct.
And it's assuming they are taking HDB loan. Yeah,
Yes.
and HDB loan have income cap.
Yeah, but
So,
if let's say the 5% is, for example, you're looking at a lower quantum HDB, let's say 400K, for example, then the 5% is how much?
20K.
20K. But then your increment is your grant, let's say, increased by 20K or 15K. Then it kind of balance it out for you.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, so it is something that I would say it does affect those higher quantum HDB, right? And next part is it does help those first-time buyers for increase in demand because the grants does favor those first-timers. Yeah. So with this, right, if it counter itself, it will create a stabilized growth for HDB prices. Or maybe slight dip, but I don't think this will be the case. You most likely stagnate, slow down the growth, but not really a dip because you see, probably bubble-wise, it's not a huge issue right now.
Yeah, but I think this one would be more of a short-term impact because if let's say you were to look at the previous measures such as like PLH, all these are more of long-term, then you will be able to see how it actually affects the market.
Yes.
Because the PLH will not be done until it will only come into effect, let's say 10 years later, 15 years later.
Yeah.
But this is something that is immediate or something that will affect buyers or sellers on the ground immediately.
Yes, indeed. So as what you mentioned, you're absolutely correct. At the end of the day, there'll be a moderated demand for this over HDB purchase. And some things to take note is, in the short term, of course, it does affect some transaction. If you ask how to affect the condo market, I won't see it's risk HDB. How it linked to condo, just for short term is maybe some of the individuals, we usually encounter some of our cases, they are planning to upgrade. They in the midst of buying a condo right now, and they are in the midst of selling HDB.
So they have a buyer already.
Yes.
But suddenly a policy came out.
Yeah. So this buyer, because this policy only affects buyers who have yet to submit HDB resale application. So there are some buyers that already exercised the unit for the
But
HDB.
haven't submit.
Haven't submit. So now they are in some, I say,
Limbo on whether
limbo,
or concern on whether the buyer will submit or go through the process. Because let's say they really do the 50K, right? Then they have to back borrow still or they have to appeal now to the government.
Yes, indeed. But most likely, because it's something that very sudden, likelihood the government will most likely approve the appeal because they have already structured this thing and it may affect a livelihood, especially someone who is transiting properties. So of course, for this period of time, it may have some technical difficulties in terms of upgrading, but I don't think it's a very big issue. Yeah.
Because usually people that actually buy the HDBs or Singaporeans in general, they don't really max out their budget.
Yes.
So they don't really clear everything. They still have safety net set aside. So
correct.
I would say it will be a tight stretch on some people, but it wouldn't cut off a lot of the transactions or like it's a immediate cut that people cannot go through it. So they can still go through it. It's just that their financial size will be a little bit tighter because of the 5%.
And for those who borrow from bank, this doesn't affect them at all because it's only for HDB loans. So I would say it's very minute in terms of the effects.
Yes.
Yeah. But the key thing we need to take note is with this, right, we need to understand how will it affect HDB in the long term run because you can see it's quite frequent. I mean, it's quite consistent. What government is trying to hint that HDB is not meant for investment, for price growth. Yeah, so with this, right, you must understand, coupled with not just this cooling measure, there are also other things like supply. Fun fact, government have already planned 100 BTO projects. Wow, exciting times for all the youngsters. And 8,000 units is a lot. It's amazing. I think there's a future, people who are saving and not tithing, for example, maybe you can consider because the government are planning ahead for you to make housing still affordable to all the younger generations. So to look at whether this trend was sustained of prices is to take a look at our shift in population dynamics. For the next 10 to 15 years, what will be happening in the market? And one thing you can take a look is that the percentage of people staying in HDB is actually decreasing. From 80.4% in 2015, it dipped all the way down to 77.7%. Okay, and most of the people are shifting to condo. We can
And that's
see.
why the percentage also went up.
Yes,
13.9 all the way up to 17%.
Yeah, so it's a trend where people are upgrading to condo, and this is something that we will see more of that happening from condo upgraders. Okay, and another thing you take note is also the population, white people. This is something very, very important because you must see what will happen in the next 10 to 15 years is that the number of Singaporeans, yes, will be increasing, okay, but the majority of them are mainly in the PR and non-residents.
Because Singaporeans not having enough babies, so they're inviting more PRs and non-residents in to fill the numbers.
Correct. And most of these PR and non-resident, later you can see that the profile is pretty decent. And why you can take a look is Singaporeans, as I mentioned, no.
So please
babies.
contribute.
Yes, 4 babies. Try my best. Okay, so what is happening right now is Singapore is going through this thing called aging population.
Yeah.
Okay, what's important to understand is because in 2018, the number of individuals who are less than 15 years old, the percentage of population, is equal to those who are more than 65. This is really a sign of aging population. And in 2030, the number of people who are more than 65 years old will be 3 times the amount of percentage of those that are below 15.
Yep.
So this just shows that if nothing is being done, if there's no new people who are coming in to support our workforce, this is not a very sustainable population dynamics. Okay, and with this, it comes in with the idea of creating more non-residents, increasing the number of PR. While you can see at 2030, you can see, assuming the PR don't count the citizens, you will start to see maybe a stagnation or even a decline for Singapore population. Okay, so why is this very important?
Yep.
Is when linked to real estate, you must understand who are the one who's buying HDB and who are the one buying condominiums. So you think, if you're a PR, you cannot buy a condo. Cannot buy a HDB
Until you conduct for 3 years.
And not just that, you must be married.
Yeah.
You have 2 PR who are married, and each of them must be PR for 3 years. So there's a lot, no tightened restriction of this. And this actually cuts out a lot of demand for this PR market that's coming in. And not just that, also, you must understand, a lot of this PR are coming in. They are, or rather, this not foreigners are coming in. They are not the blue collar, the lower paid individuals. They're actually considered under white collar workforce, which is known as the PMATs, professional managers, engineers, and technicians. And a lot of them, their income level is actually pretty decent. And with that, right, a lot of this foreigner who come to PR, the first thing they do, which we met multiples of them recently, it would be to buy into a condo market. Yeah. They won't even think about HDB for most of them. And it's something that if you look in this perspective and restriction of the PR, you can see the trend that we're moving forward. It will be towards the condo market. And HDB by itself, it will just be an own stay unit. Price won't grow as much. And that's something we foresee in the next 10 years or 15 years. So I do have a prediction. Okay, maybe 20 years down the road, things will be different. Maybe HDB more expensive than condo, never know. But what I will see is one day, the condo market will be so unaffordable that Singaporeans will be happily staying HDB, will never be upgraded, and enjoy life. I think it's still a nice place. And condo market will keep going up and up and up to the extent that only the PR or those who manage to enter in the condo market at the start to jump on the bandwagon to invest in the first place will be able to afford in the future. And it can be so wide that Singapore will just give up the dream of condo and just stay HDB happily, which is still not bad, I guess.
So when the HDB and the condo price gap becomes too wide, right, you will get to a point where it's very difficult for HDB owners to exit to upgrade to a condo because the equity you take up may not be sufficient already. So when it gets too wide, then it's really those that had a head start in the condo market that will be able to continue to grow their wealth, which I think the government may also not want this because then it becomes a very big disparity in terms of the wealth in Singapore.
Yes, indeed. But at the end of the day, as you mentioned just now, HDB is a need. It's for own stay.
Yeah.
The government want to keep it affordable. And if you go to HDB website, they say it's for affordable housing, not to flip and invest and make as much money as you can for HDB. That's not what government wants.
Yeah.
But condo market the condo is a one. It's something. It's a dream. You can have it. You can not have it. You can still survive.
The 5 C's in Singapore. The condo is part of them.
Yeah, but if it comes to investment perspective, what the government wants is also for foreigners or PR to invest money into Singapore, buy land, rebuild, stay, and this is something that the government wants this to be in. So it does align to our national agenda of foreign direct investment.
And Singapore government works in a way that any of the ones they don't really restrict the price like cars and public transport, right?
Yep.
They need public transport to be affordable because everybody's taking. But if you want a car, then that is a want. There's no longer a need. That means you won't die without it. And then they don't care about how expensive COE goes up to.
And it's keep increasing COE all the way. So this is what government is trying to do, and it's quite obvious. And in fact, it's the best way to summarize this topic about HDB is this article, actually done by Professor Tay King Soon, which studies housing policy and is a renowned architect. They mentioned that this idea of highlighting HDB as an asset is Singapore's greatest housing mistake. Okay, why is it so? If you look at the summary article, right, it's saying that number one, HDB is 99 year. It will deteriorate over time, and that's for all HDB. And the key thing over here is that the idea of putting HDB as an asset create I would say a falsified image. Or the fact that if I buy HDB, I hold long term, it will definitely appreciate over time. But the truth is, as I mentioned just now, with this new supply coming in and the demand is flowing towards condominium, in the next 10 years to 15 years, most of this asset class will actually face a problem of appreciating in value in the longer term. And most of the resources, as highlighted over here, will be diverted away from productive investments that they think that HDB can grow and will be pumped back into condo market in the long term run. Yeah. So this is a cause one asset class to grow while the other will stay stagnant in the long term run. Yeah. So then the question is, why is BTO so oversubscribed? Okay, which is something very interesting. Clients always ask, HDB no demand, why the BTO all oversubscribed? So one thing to take note is that a myth that I want to clarify today, which you read into the data, right, is that wow, overwhelming. 24,000 applicants vying for 3,900 units. Okay, like this is something that they have noticed. But one thing to take note is that this demand, supposed demand, does assume the fact that it doesn't apply for resale HDB. So a lot of people always look at BTO, wow, new, they like. But think note, some people apply for this BTO, they also stay in resale. And it means that if you talk about resale shifting to BTO, it means that resale will be vacant. Yeah. So there's something that you cannot take a look at just BTO as a gauge of demand for HDB, but looking at the entire market, including resale as a whole. And you must understand when this gap is not being filled, if you know, recently anecdotal examples are, I faces at least in my whole career about close to 15 to 16 cases of HDB owners who just want to sell because their parents passed away. And this is being transited to the next generation who also own a HDB. So this actually creates, I guess, a lot of balance in terms of flats for resale HDB in the long term run, which we have to take a look into, especially when it comes to the supply and demand curve for HDB. Yeah. So to summarize, there's something that I already seeing happening. It will just widen more and more. And one day, it will not be able to upgrade anymore. And there's something that is, I guess, it'll be what you may see in Hong Kong, perhaps, where a lot of public housing nowadays, there's very little, it's all private, and the private gap in private housing is so wide that those who bought private housing can no longer upgrade to private. But I won't say it's very fast in the next 5 years or 6 years, but rather it's the next 20 years to 30 years gap. Yeah, so this is something that, my prediction, maybe 30 years when I look into this, I'll okay, maybe I'm wrong, but there's something that I do see coming, and it does not violate national policy, which is something we have to take note.
I think in summary, it's also not saying that buying to the HDB is bad. It's just that don't look at it or don't see it as owning an HDB as holding an investment asset. Because the main purpose of government building HDBs is for affordable housing for own stay purposes. Of course, if income is not at the point where we can go to a private yet, I would always say that starting off at a BTO or at a HDB, it's a very good way to build the asset. Because a lot of people that upgrade, they actually got their wealth or the first pot of gold from BTO. Would the opportunity cost be of a longer period? Yes, because you have to wait for it to be built. You have to wait 5 years for it to MOP, where it could have been, let's say, 2 or 3 cycles in the condo market. But if you're at a stage where you're just starting out, you don't have the capital go into private, then I'll say start off from here. But just don't see it as a long-term hold for investments.
Yes, indeed. And that's something we hope to bring to everyone, because there's a message that is very important to be noted, especially if you want to look at real estate as an investment. All right. So with this, we've come to the end of this video. I hope that you have a clearer idea of how all this policy actually affect our Singapore property market, especially in HDB, which is something that we seldom touch about, but we just hope to highlight this because at the end of the day, investment is about knowledge. And this is an important key factor you understand for the HDB market. And yes, so for anyone who are keen to find out more about real estate investments and thinking how they can restructure their portfolio regardless of staying in a HDB, a condo, or landed, feel free to contact us in a number right here. We have a QR code to scan where we have our own investment team to actually attend to you regarding your investment needs. Okay, so my name is Christian.
This is Grace, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.